What's going on, everyone? Chris from Pickdawgz.com here with your college football breakdown for week 5 going down on Saturday, September 27th, 2025. We're going to be taking a look at 6 college football games from what is a loaded card on Saturday. But before we get into it, got to remind you guys, if you're looking for my best bets, the games that I absolutely love, head to Pickdawgz.com, click the Experts tab at the top of the page. For me, strictly on Saturday, it's going to be college football, but it is still a great time to jump on board because the 3-day and 7-day passes are going to be less than buying each of Saturday's daily packages individually, and you'll also get access to my college football game of the month, a play that I absolutely love, one of my favorite college football plays this entire season. So make sure that you jump on that. If you just want to jump on the standalone play, the game of the month is $39.95. I'll have a bunch of different packages on the board, based on the time of day. So, if you want something early, I'll have something for you. If you want something late, maybe, a bailout game, I'll have something there for you too. But again, like I said, make sure that you head to pickdawgz.com and remember to use the promo code PICK at checkout and get 15% off your purchase. But like I said, we have one of the most stacked college football cards of the season so far. Maybe we will of the entire season going forward. It's a lot of marquee matchups, some spots we're going to talk about. I'm going to cover a couple of those games here. And I'm going to also tell you my thoughts on some other spots where maybe you can find some value that may not be the most conventional markets, but we'll still find our value. We're still here to make some money. So let's not wait any longer. You guys know the drill. You ready? I'm ready. Let's get into it. Our first game comes to us at 12:45 p.m. Eastern. It is Vanderbilt and Utah State. And I thought Vandy was, going to be in line for a potential letdown spot in their last game when they played Georgia State, and they came out and they bludgeoned Georgia State 70-21. Now they have back-to-back road wins as road underdogs this season, and then they're going to have another spot against Alabama next week where they have another shot at another potential outright victory. You got to remember, that's going to be a revenge game for Alabama after Vandy, beat Alabama last year as 23-point dogs. So that's going to be a big deal for Vandy. You could say that maybe this is a potential look-ahead spot for them with that on deck. Thing is, though, Vandy's been a team full of gamers, and Clark Lee has shown in the past that he doesn't let his team succumb to the quote-unquote letdown or look-ahead spot. He wants his guys focused. And Utah State, this is a Utah State team I just do not trust defensively against top-tier opposition. They went on the road. They faced Texas A&M. They lost by 22. They covered, but they still gave up 44 points in that game. I think this is a game where Vandy just jumps on Utah State early, and then you see Vandy maybe start to let their foot off the gas a little bit in the second half and maybe take some of their starters out, make sure that guys, especially Diego Pavia, are healthy for next week. I just think this is a spot where Vandy comes out strong in the first half and then sort of just coasts and makes sure that, they don't put too much on film. They get in, get out, get the comfortable victory at home and then focus on Alabama. So I'm going to lay the 13.5 here with Vandy. I think they lead this one by maybe 17 at the half. Next, we had the Kinnick Stadium at 3:30 p.m. Eastern for this matchup between Iowa and Indiana, one of the marquee matchups on the board out of the Big Ten. And for me in this game, I understand a home underdog and the appeal of it in some spots, especially when it's a grinded out team like Iowa that can really just sort of slow things down and just make it a bit of a physical black and blue matchup, as Big Ten football can tend to be at times. But I just struggle to see where the offense is going to come from for Iowa. I mean, I get it. This is a team that hung 47 on UMass. They put up 38 on a hard-nosed Rutgers defense, or at least a well-coached Rutgers defense under Greg Schiano. But now you got to try to slow down Indiana and try to go score for score with Indiana. And that is not something that I trust Iowa to do, given the strength of schedule they have played so far. This is still an Iowa offense that's 106th in total offense, 108th in yards per play, 129th in passing, and you're going against an Indiana defense that's top 20 against the rush. That's what Iowa wants to do. They are top 20 in rushing attempts per game, and I just don't see it. I think Indiana is a lot better defensively than a lot of folks will give them credit for. I think Curt Cignetti is just in one of those situations where his team got a taste of success last season, But then the criticism was, well, you didn't beat anybody. Well, now look, they came out and they beat Illinois 63-10 at home. Now they got to come back out and try to replicate some of that success. It's not going to be 63-10 here, but I do think that Indiana wins this one by double digits even on the road. I just think that the explosive potential is there a lot more for Indiana than I think it is for Iowa. So I'm going to go with Indiana here. I'm going to lay the 8.5. I think I still see some 7.5s out there as well. So but either way, it's going to be Indiana laying the points on the road for me here. Now we go to primetime action at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, where Georgia takes on Alabama from Sanford Stadium. And, what else can you say? It's Alabama, Georgia. I mean, it's going to be one of the premier matchups on the card on Saturday. But I think it's going to be higher scoring. We've only got one real data point, and that's going to be the problem for a couple of these, marquee matchups, is that there may not be the most amount of data for some of them. Luckily here, we do have some data points. And I'll talk about data points in another game on the breakdown later on. But we saw Alabama, they crushed Wisconsin at home, but we also have a data point. Their only real true road test was that opening game against Florida State on the road where they got blown out. However, I still think that there's a lot of upside to be had here with this Alabama offense. You still got a great receiving core. You still got a great running back in Jam Miller. Ty Simpson, I still think, is a capable quarterback. And you can pass on this Georgia defense. I mean, in all fairness, you could argue that Tennessee maybe should have won that game last week, just with how well they were moving the ball up and down the field. They were trading shot for shot with Georgia. Tennessee was. I think Alabama could do that here, but I also think Georgia's going to be able to move the ball on Alabama's defense. It's been susceptible at times. Wins over Louisiana Monroe and Wisconsin, a Wisconsin team that just got bludgeoned by Maryland at home. Not going to move the needle for me with them as well. I think there's going to be some points scored in this game. We haven't seen this matchup in Georgia for quite some time, so I think that Sanford Stadium is going to be electric. But you look at a lot of the history between these two teams. There's some high-scoring games here. Last year was 41-34. You had that back-and-forth game where Georgia scored, and then you had the home run pass from his name escaped me, Jalen Milroe to Ryan Williams. And it broke the game open. And like I said, it was a back-and-forth fourth quarter where Georgia rallied, fell short. I think it's going to be another exciting game here. I think there's going to be a lot of drama. I think it's going to be a lot of theater in this game. So I'm going to go with the over 53 in this one. Get your popcorn and settle in for a good one. Next, we head to Missouri for this matchup between the Tigers and the UMass Midshipmen. Missouri laying a boatload here. And another game where I just think it's better to just go with the first half line here and to lay the big number with Missouri in the first half. To me, this just feels like a game where Missouri comes out flying and just takes their foot off the gas in the second half, because this is a Missouri team that also they have a bye week next week, but then they also have a home game against Alabama on deck before road games against Auburn and Vandy later on in October. I don't see UMass hanging around here. It's just 44.5 is a big number, and I could see something like a 38-7 or 45-7 kind of game where Missouri wins comfortably, but one score from UMass kind of ruins it. But I honestly think this is a game where Missouri heads into the locker room up 35-0 at the half. I think it's just maybe a big second quarter, and Missouri just starts to run away with it. You've got Eli Drinkwitz, who's still very emotional with the passing of former App State coach Sean Clark. Obviously Eli Drinkwitz coming over from App State. So, he's got guys that he brought from that program with him to Missouri, and this game's going to mean a lot to him. And he's also taken these games as well very seriously too. Drinkwitz is not one of those guys that just sort of eases up. He likes to pour it on, and he likes to step on the throat regardless of if it's UMass or Alabama. So I'm going to go with Missouri here in the first half. I think they hang a big number on the Minutemen here. Speaking of App State, they're going to Boise to take on the Boise State Broncos at Albertson Stadium. This one's also at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, I alluded to the passing of App State, coach Sean Clark. And, Clark was instrumental in a lot of the App State players that were in this program, are in this program still. And it's a big loss. And, the App State Mountaineers have at least had a bye week to process things, but they've also had a bye week to focus on Boise State. And this is an App State team that, maybe hasn't played the toughest of schedules yet. They beat Charlotte on the road. They got blown out by Southern Miss. But we've seen Boise, yeah, they've hung 100 points in their last 2 games against Air Force and Eastern Washington, but they also gave up 37 points to Air Force in that game. This is still an App State team that, again, against a weaker schedule, is still 45th in yards per play. They can pass the ball. That's where Boise State's defense is most susceptible. They're 87th in defending the pass, 101st against the rush. This Boise State defense can be had. And even if Boise State comes out and has a solid game here, you got to remember, there's a look-ahead spot on deck for Boise State. They go on the road to play Notre Dame next week. And, a good showing from Boise State, a potential outright win from Boise in that game. I know that USF has a couple of key wins, especially one over Boise, but that could potentially fire Boise State into the driver's seat for the Group of 5 playoff spot. I still have my money on North Texas, but I still think that Boise State, they're going to have one eye on Notre Dame next week. I think App State can at least come in and compete here. I think they come out, with some fire for their former coach. So I'm going to go with App State here. I'm going to take them plus 10 the first half, and I'm going to split that with another wager with the full game plus 16 in this one. The final game on Saturday's card on the breakdown will take us to Beaver Stadium, where Penn State takes on Oregon. And I alluded to data points earlier in the breakdown. And, this is one game where we don't have much to go off of in terms of these two teams going up against one another, because Oregon's matchups so far have been against Montana State, Oklahoma State, Northwestern, and Oregon State. And there's nothing really there. They haven't played anybody, but neither has Penn State. They played Nevada in their opener, and then they played FIU and Villanova before a bye week. Now, yes, they have the advantage of the bye week. Yes, they have an advantage at quarterback with Drew Aller having experience in big matchups like these. And Dante Moore, this is going to be his first true, road, marquee matchup. I mean, you've had a road game against Northwestern, looked solid there. Oregon didn't cover against Northwestern, but still, it was a road game nonetheless. But now you got to go into Penn State for a whiteout. But that being said, I still like what I've seen from Oregon. And the most important advantage for me that outweighs the quarterback advantage, which I would go with more often than not, is the coaching advantage here for Oregon. James Franklin does not win these big games. He is 4-20 as coach of Penn State in top 10 matchups. Oregon number 6 in the country. Dan Lanning is just an aggressive coach, and those aggressive calls will either play well for him here or they will shoot him in the foot. I think this is a game where Oregon is live. I think the fact that you're getting the hook on the field goal here is absolutely massive. I could see this being a 3-point game, so I would hop on it while you can if it's still out there. But either way, it's going to be Oregon plus the points and a little bit on Oregon money line for me here as well to round things out. That's it. That's your college football breakdown for Saturday, September 27th, 2025, week 5 of the college football season. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can head to pickdawgz.com. Click the experts tab at the top of the page. Again, I'm going to have my college football game of the month, so make sure that you check that out, as well as multiple packages throughout the day. Hop on something long term. Also, while you're at Pickdawgz, check out our betting tools. They are the best betting tools in the business. Tools that I strongly suggest you use. They're ones you're going to want to have in your back pocket when you're making your best bets for the day's action. And also, don't forget to leave your college football picks in the comment section below. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys.